All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mindfulness Meditation for Self-Care. My name is Janine Forsyth Lefevre. I own and operate a business called Wyoming Workplace Wellness. We're based in Laramie, but we serve the whole state, providing mindfulness meditation, communication skills, yoga instruction, and facilitating workshops and training for work teams, student groups, committees, boards, you name it. So I'm really happy to be here at the Native American Education Conference. And I should mention my pronouns are she, her. I am a certified yoga instructor, a certified mindfulness meditation facilitator and teacher, and the creator of Wyoming Workplace Wellness. A little bit about my background. I started out my professional career in human resources, and I did that for a little bit over 15 years. Lots and lots of work with work teams, including folks with disabilities, disability accommodation, lots of diversity, equity, and inclusion work. Some recruiting work, a lot of employee training. For a while, I was the ADA coordinator where I worked. So that gave me a lot of insight into just group dynamics, especially how folks are in the. But I found that that's really transferable to schools and committees and church groups, and wherever you have a group of people trying to do something together. A lot of these principles that I've learned apply there. I more recently have transitioned to a day job of being a small business advisor, which is really fun. I also teach a couple yoga classes a week, and Wyoming Workplace Wellness provides training, on a kind of a consultant basis, freelance. So it's pretty fun. A little bit about me personally. I live in Laramie. I have two kids, a son and a daughter. We have two dogs. One of them we got during the pandemic, total pandemic puppy. He was a rescue from Fremont County. And a kitty, and we all live here in Laramie. Some of the things we like to do include hiking. My son plays hockey, so we travel around the state for hockey a lot. My husband plays in a couple of bands. So we have a pretty active family life here in Laramie. What I want to do today is for the next hour or so is here on your screen. The very first thing we're going to do is a mindfulness practice. There's nothing like just jumping in with both feet. The good thing is you don't need any special equipment. You don't have to be anywhere special or do anything differently. All you need is your body and your breath to do mindfulness, and you'll learn all about that in our time together. We'll talk a little bit after our practice about what we want to learn today. I'll go over some inoculations. So just kind of managing expectations, like what mindfulness is and what mindfulness isn't. We're going to define mindfulness, and that's going to look differently for everyone. So you can take some of these definitions and think about them and see what makes sense for you. Then we're really going to talk about how mindfulness can enter your day as a form of caring for yourself. So we'll discuss some sample mindfulness practices that you can do on your own in the mornings, in the afternoons, throughout the day. And then we'll have an opportunity to make our own plans for how we would like to use mindfulness as we care for ourselves throughout our lives. And then normally, if I were doing this live, we'd have a group discussion and closing. But I am going to really encourage you to discuss this with your friends and family. If there's anyone there watching this presentation with you. And you're also welcome to show up to my Q&A. I hope to see you there, and we can have a more lively conversation about this. So that's what to expect for our time together. So what I might offer right now, if you want to, you can pause the video and just go grab a pen and paper. You may want that later on when we're coming up with our plan, but you may also want to take little notes as you think of things that you might do for yourself. And I do believe that these slides will be made available to you as well. So hopefully that's the case. Okay, so let's just start with our mindfulness practice. So the very first thing I'm going to do is ask for you to find a tall, comfortable way for your body to be. A lot of times we say a tall, comfortable seat. That works really well for a lot of people. So right now, I'm just sitting on the floor on a pillow. You can sit in a chair. You could be standing. You could even be lying down if that feels better for your body. The main thing is we want our spines to be nice and long. We want to create a nice unobstructed airway to the extent that we can. So we're able to breathe in and it travels all the way down, and we breathe out and it travels all the way back up. And it's hard to do that if you're kind of slouching or leaning. So just take a moment to find your tall, comfortable posture, whatever that looks like for you. And I'm just sitting, crisscross applesauce on the floor. And then once you find your comfortable spot, if it feels safe for you, you can close down the eyes, or you can just soften your gaze, maybe unfocus the eyes a little bit and just kind of look a few feet in front of you on the floor or the ground. And now here we'll just begin to notice the breath. Not trying to change anything right now, just noticing as the air travels in through the nose or the mouth. Nose, if that's available to you. Maybe the air travels past the throat, past the heart. Maybe you even feel the air traveling all the way down into the low belly. Before reversing that process, emptying the belly, the heart, the throat, the nose. Just check in with the breath. Notice anything you can notice about it. Maybe you notice a little bit of cool air on the tip of your nose as the air enters. Maybe you notice some sticky spots in your breath where it feels a little scratchy or restricted. Maybe it feels nice and smooth and expansive. And let's all begin to deepen the breath. Maybe inhaling to a count of 4. Exhaling to a count of 5 or 6. Inhale to a count of 4. Exhale 5 or 6. We'll do that for 5 more rounds. Go at your own pace. And then when that's complete, keeping some awareness still with your breath, we'll check in with the physical body. And to do this, maybe you just begin to notice any body sensations you're feeling right now. You could do a body scan, maybe starting at the soles of your feet and just slowly scanning your awareness up. Noticing as you go any areas of tightness or tension. If you have a little pain today, where that is. Maybe things feel relaxed and loose and good. Maybe you have a little knot in the belly or the low back. Again, we're not judging, we're not trying to change, just noticing, just being aware of what it feels like to be in our body right now. See if you can name 2 physical sensations. So for example, for me, I'm noticing that my low back feels a little strained, a little tight. And I'm also noticing that it's a little warm in here, right? I'm feeling that the ambient air is a little bit warm. It's summertime and I can really feel that on my skin. Good. And now similarly, we're going to check in with our mental and feeling self. So kind of that space by your heart, that space between your ears. What are you thinking and feeling right now? What's your mental and emotional self look like? And same thing here, no judgment, just noticing. Maybe notice if your mind is full of chatter. Maybe there are some anxieties about something that came before this moment or something that might come after this moment. Maybe there's a little worry or just planning that's trying to happen as we sit together in mindfulness. Or maybe there's some emotional stuff coming up, some sadness or grief, maybe happiness or excitement. Whatever it is, just allow it to be and notice it. See if you can label. So for example, for me, I feel excited and happy to be here spending this time with you. And my mind feels relatively still and calm at the moment. Doesn't feel too chattery or busy, which is nice. Once you've noticed a couple things, just take 2 more really deep breaths, maybe the deepest breaths you've taken yet. Inhaling through the nose, drawing the air all the way down into the low belly, maybe pausing a moment at full before slowly exhaling. You can even use your tummy muscles to kind of push out any stale air that might be lurking there. So we'll do 2 big deep breaths just like that. And that feels complete. You can just return to your natural rhythm of breath. And when you're ready, you can flutter open or refocus the eyes. Good. So what we just did was a mindfulness meditation practice. Nothing fancy, nothing too complicated. You'll notice the cornerstone of our practice was our breath, and this is important. Having a focal point for mindfulness can really help you to tune in, and the more you practice, and we're going to talk about this, the quicker you're able to tune into your focal point. Another beautiful thing about using your breath as a focal point, especially when we did the breathing where we inhaled for 4, exhaled for 5 or 6, that stimulates your vagus nerve, which really affects your nervous system and tends to calm it down relatively quickly. So thinking about calming your nervous system down, lowering your heart rate, lowering your blood pressure even by doing this, that's all part of the deal, right? So you've already done a mindfulness practice today. Well done. Okay. So let's go over a little bit of our learning objectives for our time together. What I'm hoping is by the end of this hour, you understand the basics and some of the research behind mindfulness. We're not going to be subject matter experts, of course, that's impossible to do in an hour. But one of the beautiful things about mindfulness is that it is incredibly simple. It's the kind of thing that is super, super simple to understand, and yet you can spend your whole life learning about it, right? At least for me, it never gets old. There's always something else to learn. We're going to understand, hopefully, the benefits of mindfulness practices at home and at work, at school, and especially in terms of taking care of yourself. What we just did, our mindfulness practice, is a form of self-care, calming the mind, calming the body, slowing the heart rate, calming the nervous system, taking time for yourself in silence. That's all caring for ourselves, right? It cares for your body, your mind. So we'll talk a little bit about how you can incorporate some of those ideas into your daily life. And then we are going to make a plan. We're going to understand and hopefully identify some strategies for mindful self-care. And again, this will look differently for everyone. So this is when your pen and paper are going to come in handy. All right. So let's talk a little bit about managing our expectations, right? Something that there's a misconception out there sometimes with people I talk to, even mindfulness meditation teachers sometimes, falling into this thinking that mindfulness is a cure for everything. And it certainly is not, right? It is not a cure-all. Mindfulness is not going to cure disease in most cases, right? It's not going to make it so a difficult boss is no longer difficult. It's not going to make it so that an F in a class turns into an A, right? That's not what mindfulness is. It's not a replacement for your basic needs being met. We all still need to be fed, to be sheltered, to be clothed, to be loved, right? We all need to eat well and spend time outdoors, and all the things that nourish us as humans, all those things still have to happen. Mindfulness won't take the place of any of that. And I think this one is interesting. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of times mindfulness is not an escape. It's not a vacation from your life. Mindfulness, it's almost the opposite. And we're going to learn a little bit about this. Mindfulness is all about really, really being present in your life, really noticing your body, your mind, your surroundings, and being truly, truly present. There are lots and lots of different kinds of meditation, though, and some of you might be familiar with guided meditations, which are lovely. I adore them. I lead my clients in guided meditations often, and I participate in them myself. But they're not typically the same thing as a mindfulness meditation. A mindfulness meditation is really going to encourage you to be present in your body, in your space, in your surroundings. Some of the things mindfulness is, it's a daily practice. And they call it a practice, not a perfect, right? For a reason. Just as you would not grab a football, throw on a helmet, and have your very first football experience be playing in the Super Bowl. You're not going to be successful, right? You have to practice and practice and practice. And you practice hopefully when the stakes are nice and low, right? You're a little kid, you're in a park, you're just practicing, hanging out, nobody's money, or, it's low stakes, it's low risk, and you get to practice that way. Then hopefully you do that for a number of years, you get more and more and more and more skilled. Then you're ready to go practice it when the stakes are really high, right? When there's a lot on the line, your reputation and all of those things are there. Now you've got the skills and the practice built in so that you can just fly through that high stakes scenario. Mindfulness is no different. I encourage the folks I work with to do at least a little bit of mindfulness practice every single day. And that way, when stuff does get hard, when you have that bad day, when you're moving through an upset, moving through grief, moving through stress, high anxiety, those skills are built. You've been to practice, right? You've been running your lines or whatever the football equivalent is, whatever you do in football practice. You've been doing that for your mindfulness, and you're able to turn it on and use those skills to take care of yourself when things get really high stakes, when they get challenging. Mindfulness practice is unique to every individual. So what works for me as mindfulness may not work for you, and that's perfect. The idea here is to just be present in your body, in your mind, and in your surroundings. So for me, I will use the breath as a focal point often, and that's typically how I teach. I have worked with some folks that have some trauma or difficulty in focusing on their breath, and that's okay. Honestly, my son who has asthma can occasionally feel a little triggered trying to focus on his breath. So in those instances, I might recommend a different kind of focal point, like a candle flame or a flower or a plant, even a tree outside your window, right? For some folks, maybe a stone, or even like a bracelet or something, a beaded necklace, something that can help you focus your mind and be really, really present. So that's just one example on how mindfulness practice might be unique to different individuals. And again, it's really helpful if you do it regularly. All right. Ooh. The next thing I wanted to, there we go. The next thing I wanted to share is this little video. It's not very long, but I love it because it explains mindfulness in a way that makes sense to me. I hope it really makes sense to you. It demystifies it just a little bit. And then I've also included a definition here on the screen. So this is from Jon Kabat-Zinn. He's a Western mindfulness researcher. He started researching Buddhist mindfulness practices in the 1970s and discovering that they were very, very effective at supporting people as they moved through facing addictions, facing chronic pain, different mental health challenges. He started to notice that these Buddhist mindfulness practices were incredibly helpful. And here's his definition. Mindfulness is paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally to the unfolding of experience moment to moment. It's a fancy way of saying be here now, right? But we'll go ahead and watch this short YouTube video here. Oh, there we go.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, you're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation. I believe that meditation and mindfulness are the next big public health revolution. In the 1940s, if you told somebody you were going running, they would have said, who's chasing you? But then what happened next? The scientists swooped in, they showed that physical exercise is really good for you, and now all of us do it, and if we don't, we feel guilty about it. And that's where I think we're headed with mindfulness and meditation. It's going to join the pantheon of no-brainers like brushing your teeth, eating well, and taking the meds your doctor prescribed for you. Let me just close by saying, mindfulness is not going to solve all of your problems. It's not going to render your life a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. Nonetheless, this is a superpower, and one that is accessible by you immediately.
All right. Oh, there we go. Okay. Any thoughts or reactions you might have had to the video? Feel free to just jot those down, and we can talk about them during our Q&A. If you are able to come to that, that would be fun to talk about. I think it's interesting how the narrator there talks about mindfulness as being the next public health revolution, kind of like eating well or exercise. I tend to agree with him. I think that the more we learn about it and the more we explore it, the more we move it into schools and workplaces. Um, Even, incarcerated folks are using mindfulness as a way to care for themselves. I think the more we do that, the more we're going to learn how valuable it is. And maybe some of you already have a lot of experience with mindfulness, and maybe you agree with me or you don't. I'd love to hear it when we meet live. But let's just talk about, this is the teensiest little taste of what kind of research exists out there. And I just want to start by saying that mindfulness is an ancient idea. It just has modern Western research backing. Primarily, mindfulness, the way we are tending to practice it now, is found in Buddhist traditions, also yoga, Hindu, some Celtic traditions, and others. I would also argue that many other traditions have mindfulness practices built into their cultures. I was thinking the other day even about folks who are Catholic using the rosary. That could be a form of mindfulness. Prayer in general can be a form of mindfulness. Um, there are also lots of activities that can be a form of mindfulness that are kind of require you to be nice and present and aware of your surroundings and kind of help you really embody yourself and where you are. So maybe think a little bit about your own culture and tradition, how you grew up, if you can identify any practices you learned that might be qualified as mindfulness. So my point there is that Western scientists did not invent this concept, right? They're basically taking something that's existed for a long time and asking a question, how does this really work, right? What does Western science tell us about how this works? So in 1979, I mentioned him before, Jon Kabat-Zinn explored Buddhist mindfulness practices from a Western scientific perspective. He's written several books. He actually is the originator of MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction, which has been very widely studied and used in a lot of different scenarios with people. And fast forward from 1979, there is lots and lots and lots of data about mindfulness. Western research is essentially catching up with what many folks have known for centuries, right? Now there's 20 years or more worth of empirical data exploring a range of practices and populations, including healthcare professionals, which I've really been interested in over this last year, right? Mindfulness practices have been shown to improve a wide spectrum of health outcomes. It can increase empathy and altruistic behaviors. Mindfulness has been shown to assist in curbing addiction. It increases well-being in many different areas. If you were to think, well, I'd love to find out more about that, who are the big players in mindfulness research? I might suggest to you UC San Diego School of Medicine Center for Mindfulness, or the University of Massachusetts Center for Mindfulness. Both of them have very robust websites, lots and lots of information out there. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that if this is an area of interest. And then there are so many programs that have been implemented, right? I mentioned MBSR. There's also mindful self-compassion, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, mindful eating, conscious living, which is supporting individuals who experience eating disorder. MPEAK is mindfulness, performance enhancement, awareness, and knowledge. It's essentially for athletes to improve athlete performance. So you can see folks are using these skills and these ideas all over the place in all kinds of different ways. So you certainly can do this in your own life. So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of how a mindfulness practice can help you care for yourself. And I have it split between home and work here, but you can think also about school. You could think also about other areas where you spend time. Maybe you volunteer, wherever, maybe you play sports, right? Maybe you play a music instrument, maybe you work with animals. Wherever you are, chances are that some mindfulness practices can really help you take care of yourself and be more present in your life. Presence is the big key in mindfulness, right? It's being here now, not judging where we are, not, trying to fast forward in our minds to what's going to come in the next moment, or time travel back to something that happened before this moment. It's about being here now. The way that a mindfulness practice can really help you care for yourself is it can assist in managing your stress and anxiety. It can improve your resilience. It improves relationships, emotional intelligence. You start to be more in tune not only with what you're feeling, but after you've practiced for a while, you kind of start to be more in tune with what other people are feeling, which can be really helpful in your relationships with people you love, with people you work with people you find challenging, right? Mindfulness can improve your sleep. Sleep is a beautiful form of self care, right? We could probably all use a little bit more sleep. Uh, in the workplace or in other activities, it can help you with your focus, your productivity, your job performance. It can improve your physical health. It can assist in managing chronic pain, help with general well being. As I mentioned earlier, it can lower your heart rate and your blood pressure. It can also improve your job satisfaction. So, there are lots and lots of ways that mindfulness can help you in your life. So let's talk a little bit about using mindfulness specifically for self-care. This is a picture of me. I don't know if you can tell, it was a couple of years ago. My hair was way shorter, and I am in just a very generic hotel room. And on this day, I had been traveling for work and I had been traveling for several days. It was the middle of winter. I was exhausted. I hadn't seen my family. My honestly, my job was not going very well. I wasn't having fun in the work that I was doing at that time. I didn't feel like I was in the place I wanted to be. I felt like my coworkers were challenging. And then, we were traveling together and then a storm hit. And on the day I thought I was going to get to go home, I ended up in this generic hotel room right by the airport. And my first inclination was like, just kind of in the video was like, I'm pissed, right? This is not okay. I don't like this. I want to be home. I don't want to be in a crappy hotel room eating stuff out of the vending machine. I want to be home and with my family and not traveling anymore. So I let myself into the hotel room. You can see my suitcase is just still on the floor there. It's not unpacked or anything. I sat down. I set up my phone to take a picture. And I thought, I want to remember this moment. I want to remember this moment when I am turning to my mindfulness practice instead of letting my mind be a runaway train and get really upset. So I found a tall, comfortable seat. I closed my eyes and I tuned into my breath. I noticed a couple things in my body. I noticed my mind, my surroundings, the feel of that hard, weird hotel carpet underneath my seat, the air in the room still smelling a little bit like disinfectant that they had used to clean it before I got there. And I think I even remember saying to myself, this is how it is right now. Right now, this is how it is. And it still was challenging, but I felt so much better. And I could feel my heart rate decreasing, right? I could feel my nervous system starting to say, okay, you're safe, right? You'll get home tomorrow. Just breathe. So I'm glad I have this picture to remind me of that moment. And that's a perfect example of when a daily practice can really come in handy. So, thinking about some ways that you could quickly find mindfulness during your day, I usually start here. For most folks, me included, little bite sized ways to begin incorporating mindfulness practices in your day feel way more accessible than sitting down and meditating in silence for 20 minutes. Like, that's a lot of time, right? That's intimidating. There might be someday when you get to that point, and if that's the case, that's amazing, but it's certainly not necessary. So I like to start with these little bite-sized ways of incorporating a mindfulness practice into your day. And again, I recommend starting doing these when things feel fine, when things feel good. Maybe when you're doing something you really, really love, stopping for a mindfulness break. So that way you've built your muscle memory for when things get challenging or stressful, you have these to fall back on. So here are some ideas. Mini mindfulness breaks can look like what we did in the beginning, counting to 4 as you inhale, counting to 6 as you exhale, and doing this for several rounds. And again, this stimulates the vagus nerve and calms your nervous system. Another thing is just stopping whatever you're doing and just mindfully noticing 3 things about where you are in that moment. So maybe you just kind of look around, notice something on the walls, on the floor. If you're inside, notice a plant, a bird, a tree. If you're outside, just 3 things and really notice them. That's mindfulness. Another one that I love, and I've actually done this one in meetings, and I don't think anyone noticed. If it's safe to close your eyes, you can close your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes. You can just kind of look down. You can even pretend to be writing something. But wherever you are, just bring your awareness to your feet. Just really bring all your awareness into your feet and just start to notice everything you can about your feet. Are they warm? Are they cool? Are you wearing socks? Sandals? Are your feet bare? What's the temperature of the room? What's the sock feel like on your toes? Noticing everything you can about your feet, then just take 3 deep breaths, imagining that you can send your breath all the way down to your feet. You can try this right now if you like. It's incredibly grounding. And it's a really good one to do if you kind of start to feel your head spinning a little bit. Start to feel your brain working overtime. This can happen to me sometimes if I get in an argument with someone. It's pretty typical. My brain starts to feel kind of spinny and like I start to kind of leave my body in a way with my awareness. Breathing into your feet can be really grounding and helpful. Another way to just easily incorporate mindfulness is to eat without any distractions. I am notoriously terrible about trying to read or catch up on my favorite show or scroll through Instagram or something while I'm eating. But pausing and eating mindfully, really just focusing on that one activity can be incredibly helpful for your brain. At meditation retreats, they often will do this with a raisin. They'll give everybody 1 raisin, and first they'll have you just put it in your mouth and just kind of like notice everything you notice about the raisin, and then they'll have you bite into it and then really notice the flavor and the texture and what it tastes like and how it makes your mouth feel and that kind of thing. And you don't have to get that into it, honestly. Just eating without any distractions and being totally present with your food is a kind of mindfulness. And then on the fly, a great way to practice this is just noticing things you're grateful for as you roll through your day, even tiny, tiny things. And if it helps, you can write them down. You could type them into a phone app or something. But that's mindfulness, just taking a moment and being like, wow, I'm really grateful for this hot cup of coffee. This tastes great in the morning, right? Or I'm grateful that my car started. I'm grateful that I have food tonight. Or maybe you're grateful for your friends, your family, your favorite pet, whatever it is, just noticing as you go throughout your day. That's a form of mindfulness. Okay. The next thing I like to touch on is mindful self-talk. And now I'm getting into those moments when things do get tough, things get challenging, right? Maybe you're going through a hard time, whatever it is, you're feeling stressed, you're feeling anxious. Maybe it's something really big. You're processing a giant grief or loss. Maybe it's something small, like in the video, you get cut off in traffic. Maybe it's a deadline at work or an argument with a loved one, whatever it is. Breathing, being present in your body, and maybe saying to yourself, I'm going through a hard time right now, or I'm feeling stressed right now, right? Just acknowledging what it is, kind of how I did in the hotel room. Like, this is how it is right now. Right now, this is how it is. I'm feeling stress right now. Right now, I'm feeling stress. And then the next thing I like to do is remember that you're not alone. Everyone goes through hard times. Everyone feels stress. I am not alone. It can feel very lonely, but know that everyone does. Everyone goes through these times. And then ending with a promise to yourself to take care, right? I'm going to be kind to myself, and now I'm going to take 3 deep breaths. Mindful self-talk. It's a way to reset your mind It's a way to acknowledge and validate whatever you're feeling in that moment and to come back and be present. Okay. So maybe you start to incorporate some of these little bite-sized pieces into your day to take care of yourself. You start noticing things you're grateful for or doing little breathing exercises, maybe breathing into your feet a couple times a day. And you think, okay, I'm ready to kind of work this into my day in a little bit of a more formal way. So I have a couple of suggestions for you for a morning and an evening practice. And again, these are just suggestions. They may not work for you at all, and that's totally fine. You can find your own thing. This is just a way to get started. So this is a suggested morning practice for mindfulness. It shouldn't take more than 5 or 6 minutes. It certainly could take longer if you wanted it to, but I would build in about 5 minutes for this practice. Mindful breathing, just how we started in our practice today. Tall, comfortable posture in your body, closing down or softening the eyes, tuning into your breath. I suggest here you set a timer for 3 minutes. You could do 1 minute. You could do 30 seconds when you first get started. It's not how long you do it, it's just the practice. So a tall, comfortable posture, closing or softening the eyes, tuning into the breath. And then just as we did, noticing to physical feelings, noticing to thoughts or emotions, wherever you are that day. And if it helps you, you can write them down. Sometimes if you do this over time, it's interesting to see how you felt on certain days. And sometimes you can even draw some conclusions like, oh, wow, after I spend time with this friend, the next day I always feel drained. Maybe that's a sign to you, right? And then for your morning practice, I recommend just setting an intention for the day and writing it down. It could be something really tiny, like today I'm going to be really kind to my mom, or today I'm going to do one random act of kindness for a stranger, or today I'm going to take my dog for a walk, or I'm going to take care of myself by eating really healthy, whatever it is, an intention for the day. And then optional here, what I have here is a loving kindness or metta meditation. And this comes directly from Buddhist tradition. It's lovely. This is part of a mindfulness self-compassion practice. So being kind to yourself and then being kind to others. And you can do this. I always start with ourselves. Start with yourself. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. And then you can extend it outward, right? Maybe to your partner or a loved one. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. And then you can keep going if you want to. Extend it out to your community, to your county, to your state, to your country, maybe to all beings. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. And there's a lot of research behind this practice. So if you try it before we have our Q&A, I'd love to hear what it was like for you. Okay. And then moving on here to a suggested nighttime practice. Again, this could look any way you want it to. This is just an idea. Once more, your mindful breathing, just setting that timer and tuning into your breath again, right? Noticing anything there is to notice. And the same thing, noticing to physical feelings, to thoughts or emotions. And maybe you jot those down. And then in the morning, I suggested setting an intention. In the evening, maybe you reflect on the day. What was one win, even if it was little? One thing you're grateful for, one gratitude. And then maybe just one neutral observation. It was cloudy today. We had chicken for dinner, right? Just something that really makes you have to be present in your day for a moment, a neutral observation. And then, maybe journaling feels like a nice thing for you. Not everybody's a journaler. I enjoy jotting little things down. I feel like it helps them kind of stay in my brain better, but you do you, whatever works. Okay. So now this is where I really encourage you, and if you want to, you could even pause in a moment, but we're going to start talking about a personalized self-care plan. And I have an example of one here. It's not really mindfulness based completely, but a lot of the things that Ignacio is putting here are things that contribute to our mindfulness, to being present, right? Like he has meditate right there, exercise, nourishing food, sleep, all those things. So here are some areas that I think it's nice to start with. So I have 4 different areas here where you can think about incorporating mindfulness. So for your physical self-care, this is caring for your physical body, sleep, stretching, walking, healthy food, yoga, rest, exercise. Um, it could also be going to the doctor, treating condition or diseases that need treatment, being good about taking care of your body in other ways, whatever that looks like for you, but being really mindful and aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and being really present with yourself. So that might be some physical things that you could do to take care of yourself. And then your emotional self needs care too. So you need things that help manage your stress. And for a lot of folks, this can be mindfulness meditation. It can also be exercise. A lot of these areas kind of cross pollinate, right? Emotional self-care can also be treating yourself and others with compassion, maybe doing that loving kindness meditation. It can be forgiving someone. Maybe you've got someone that's taking up space rent-free in your head, and forgiving them will allow them to just move out, right? It could be time with loved ones or pets, and gratitude practices like we've been talking about can really help care for our emotional self. Mindful social self-care can look like setting boundaries, right? Like most people think social, oh, it's hanging out with people. Maybe sometimes it's putting a little space between you and some people, setting those nice boundaries, right? If you're the kind of person that just says yes to everything all the time, and then you wonder why you feel really drained and tired, maybe there are some opportunities to mindfully think about, is this something that really is going to be nourishing for me or not? And if it's not, maybe you say, no, I don't want to I don't want to do that. That's mindfully setting a boundary. It can look like reaching out to your support systems and mindfully choosing who is part of your support person. What relationships do you feel nourished by? It can be curating your social media feed to be positive, hiding those folks that are just little negative Nancy's. You know who they are, these people. Maybe it's hiding a bunch of news stuff that's depressing or you don't need to see a lot on your social media feed, and kind of curating that to be more positive, more full of gratitude, and folks who are trying to help as opposed to hurt. It can be thinking about your communication skills and communicating with people. It could be spending quality time with your loved ones. And then our spiritual self-care, of all of these, I feel like this might even be the most personalized. It really is going to look different for everyone. It can be spending time in solitude. It could be spending time in worship with others. It can be meditation. It can be prayer, journaling, spending time in sacred space, in nature. It can be lots and lots and lots of different things. So maybe one good opportunity the next time you're in meditation, after you do your mindful breath check-in, is to think about, ask yourself, how do I care for my spirit? What can I mindfully do to support my spirit, my spiritual well-being? So if you have time and you want to, you could pause the video or you can wait till the end. Just draw a little grid on your paper, just like this, and work on your self-care and mindfulness plan. How are you going to address all these things? How are you going to incorporate mindfulness into your life? Or will you? Maybe you're watching this and you're like, it's not for me. That's fine too. So this is a good place to pause. And I have the 4 areas right there: physical, emotional, social, and spiritual. Okay. And once you have your plan, once you have a way that you think you can take care of yourself and be really mindful, I really, really encourage you to share it. A lot of research shows us that we as humans are more likely to follow through on something if we tell someone else about it, right? A little bit of accountability. So if you're with someone watching this presentation, maybe take a moment and share what you wrote down or what you chose, or maybe You want to talk about your mindful self-care plan with your mom or your teacher or a coworker or your kid or whoever. But sharing this out and talking about what you've learned today and what you've decided might work in your own life, that is just going to increase the chances of follow through and increase the chances that you're able to really build a consistent practice. Sharing out is powerful. Okay. So I know this is kind of a busy slide, but I really like it. And I'm sure a lot of you could add to it. These are just a few of my ideas to further incorporate learning and thinking about mindfulness into your life. And I apologize, I'm not sure if they're still doing this, but during COVID, the UC San Diego Center for Mindfulness was posting free live practice sessions online, and it was lovely. So I have a link there, but if you just Googled like UC San Diego Center for Mindfulness, you would find their live practices. So that's kind of cool. It was available to everyone. And I believe they might still have recordings out there if they're not still doing the live ones. Yoga is a wonderful way to be mindfulness or to be mindful. And one thing I just want to say about yoga is it's not about being flexible. It's not about having yoga pants, although there are some people that practice that way. Um, Meditation is yoga, right? I could do a whole other presentation on what yoga is, but if you're interested in yoga, a yoga class is a great way to start being really present in your body and moving with your breath. If you're lucky enough to live in a place that has in-person yoga classes, by all means, that's fantastic. However, there are lots and lots of free yoga classes on YouTube. So you don't have to pay anything. There's a whole lot of them out there. You could search for gentle yoga, mindfulness yoga, and I guarantee you're going to find some cool stuff and just try them out. And maybe some instructors you'll love, maybe some you won't, but it's a great way to introduce mindful movement. Quote Zen coloring books. I honestly think any kind of coloring is pretty mindful. It's pretty fun. It can really help focus your mind. Same thing goes for lots and lots of other kind of quiet, repetitive activities: beadwork, knitting, crochet, woodworking. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff that can really focus your mind. That's what we're working on, right? We're focusing our mind and staying in the present moment. So anything that helps you do that. There are lots of mindfulness journals and planners out there for purchase. They can be very, very helpful. I just use regular notebooks. And as you see in the practices I presented here today, I just jot down what I'm grateful for, what my intentions are, my observations. But there are mindfulness journals that you could check out if that appeals to you. And they have little writing prompts and suggestions on how to build practice into your life. There's a whole bunch of websites that are great resources. I really like mindful.org. They don't pay me to say that or anything. I just like it. And I actually get their print magazine. I have one right here. You can see that. It's nice. I like it. They usually have a little combination of research and stories. And yeah, I find it informative and helpful. There's a ton of meditation apps out there right now. There's no way I could have listed them all here on this slide. Some that I'm familiar with. Insight Timer is my favorite personally. It's just, I think it's because it's the one that I know. There's also Calm, Headspace, 10% Happier. There's one called Happify. There's a bunch. So there's lots of different meditation apps you could try if that appeals. If you're looking for films that can help you explore ideas around mindfulness, there are quite a few. Some of my favorite, Room to Breathe from 2013, is about bringing mindfulness into an inner city school district. Inside Out, 2015, it's an animated Pixar movie. Some of you have probably seen it. I think it addresses the ideas of mindfulness very, very well, especially kind of that emotional intelligence piece that we talked about earlier. Walk with Me from 2017 is a documentary about a Vietnamese Buddhist monk called Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a very world-renowned mindfulness teacher. He marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. He's written several books. He has a monastery called Plum Village in France. Anyway, fascinating guy, really, really cool. It's a great movie. And then folks always laugh at me about this one, but The Matrix from 1999, our good friend Keanu Reeves. It's a perfect metaphor for coming into mindfulness and no longer being caught up in the non-reality of past thinking or future thinking, right? But being present in the here and now and really seeing the world for what it is, which is kind of what mindfulness does for us. So if it's been a while since you've seen The Matrix, I would recommend renting that again and see what you think, especially after you've been through this workshop. Like, see what you think, if I'm right, if it really is a metaphor for mindfulness. And then finally, here I have some books listed. There's a whole lot out there. These are just some that I enjoy. Full Catastrophe Living by John Kabat-Zinn, Mindful Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff, Bringing Home the Dharma by Jack Kornfield, Wherever You Go, There You Are, John Kabat-Zinn, and then Peace is Every Step, The Path of Mindfulness in Everyday Life, and that's by Thich Nhat Hanh, the one who's the movie Walk With Me is about. Okay. So that brings us to the end of my presentation. Here's my contact information, wyomingworkplacewellness.com. wyomingworkplacewellness@gmail.com is my email address. You can see my phone number there. You're always welcome to get a hold of me. I love talking about this stuff. If this is something you'd like to bring to a student group or a committee or a board or a workplace, I'd love to have those conversations. And if you're still with me, I'd like to just close with a little closing practice. So once more, we'll find our tall, comfortable posture, whatever that looks like. Close down or soften the eyes. Begin to tune into the breath. Just notice any qualities of the breath that you can notice. Maybe it feels the same as it did an hour ago. Maybe it's different. Begin to notice the breath drawing deeper now. Maybe coming all the way down into the low belly before emptying out again. And then keeping a percentage of awareness on your breath. I'd like you to just silently ask yourself this question: how will I be mindful this week? Which mindfulness practice spoke to me? And then just sit in silence, watching your breath, and see if an answer comes. It might not. Just notice. I'll take just a couple more breaths here. And then let's end our time together with just a little bit of gratitude. So you can leave your hands where they are, or if it feels okay, you could layer your hands over your heart, or even bring your hands to prayer. Just notice where they want to be. You can even bow the head slightly, tucking the chin. Identify one thing you're grateful for right here in this moment, big or small. And then breathe that in for 3 breaths. Just breathe in that feeling of being grateful, that feeling of gratitude. Notice how the heart expands on the inhale, drawing that gratitude all the way in. And that feels complete. You can lower the hands, lift the head, and flutter open the eyes. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. What a gift to spend this time with you. I hope to see all of you at the live Q&A. Take care.